Guys, you don't need to choose between price and quality to get an amazing and affordable shave. DollarShaveClub.com is the answer. To prove how amazing their shave really is, right now they are going to give you your first month free to join the club. DollarShaveClub.com delivers amazing razors right to Tim Gettys' door for a third of the price of what the greedy razor corporations charge. Join the club like Tim did and stop dealing with the drugstore hassle and battle of the locked-up razor fortress ever again. See why over 3 million members like Tim Gettys, that's right, the pure one himself, love Dollar Shave Club. They're so confident in the quality of all their products. Now you can get your first month of the club for free. Just pay shipping. After that, it's just a few bucks a month. No long-term commitment. No hidden fees. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Greggy. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Greggy and shave your face. I made that up. That's not their tagline, but I think they should use it. But I guess you could shave any... Hold on. And shave whatever. Nick?
Yes.
What's your topic?
Can you like someone's art if you don't like the artist?
Yes.
Recently in the news, there's two stories that come to mind. One, Mel Gibson's in the news because he sort of finally started to talk about his incident in 2006. A lot of people are saying maybe it's time to forgive.
The sugar tits incident.
Yeah. Dude, he went a little crazy too. I've never actually watched the video of him, but I've just seen the pull quotes from that. So we went a little crazy. But then the other person that comes to mind is Nate Parker, who is still having a hard time with his film Birth of a Nation, which just came out and is doing, I guess, semi-well. But unfortunately, that came out, and some allegations of rape from when he was in college also resurfaced due to some unfortunate events. And that's cast a pretty deep shadow on that film. And so, if I'm being honest, it's one of the reasons why I probably haven't been... I don't know. It's just that one deterror for me to go like, I don't really need to see that film. Right, and it's not that I like or dislike either of those two people. I love Mel Gibson. I've loved Mel Gibson ever since I saw Lethal Weapon for the first time, and then realized he was the same guy in Mad Max. I'm like, this guy's an amazing actor, and so to see him tarnished like that is kind of heartbreaking, right? Of his own device, obviously, of his own doing. But then when they started in the podcast I was listening to on the way over here, which is where some of the news of this broke on Variety, they were talking about Lethal Weapon 5, and I'm like, fuck. I would love to see Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 5. Like, that would be fucking amazing. But can he get past this? Can we get past this? Or is it okay that he's a flawed human being and still going out there and making art? And Colin, you said yes immediately.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's funny because I brought this up as my possible topic as well because I read the story this morning on Yahoo or something about, it was on Drudge, I think, about is it time to forgive Mel Gibson? And it's been forever. I mean, they were talking about like Mel Gibson's last directorial gig was Apocalypto. This was like 10 years ago, you know, that all this happened. Now, I'm not forgiving what he said or what he did. I mean, what he did was incredibly shitty. I will say that everyone says and does really terrible shit that if caught on camera, like at some point in their life, that if caught on camera, like could ruin you. I mean, that's real ubiquitous. I don't believe anyone that would possibly say that in a private moment or in a candid moment or in an angry moment that they haven't said or done stupid shit. Yeah, that would make them look like a terrible person. Now, I'm not saying that I've done what Mel Gibson has done necessarily about an international Jewish conspiracy, but with that, so
I want you to understand how someone might get to that point.
So I want to temper. You know, I don't want to make it seem like I'm forgiving what he said, but I like Mel Gibson, and I've often wondered not really being, because I love Lethal Weapon 2. That movie and the buddy cop movies like that, and specifically Lethal Weapon was along with like a lot of Leslie Nielsen movies and all that stuff, were movies that me and my dad really liked. So I have really fond memories of Naked Gun, and I have really fond memories of Lethal Weapon and Braveheart.
Well, Naked Gun's another one of those where it's like, can you go back and watch that the same way, knowing that O.J. Simpson's in it? Right?
Exactly. Yeah, O.J. Simpson's not only in it, he's fucking hilarious.
He's hilarious in it.
Like
very likable character,
and found innocent.
And so
by a jury of his peers.
I do think with the O.J. Simpson thing, it's by degree, right? Like I think that O.J. Simpson didn't do something bad. He clearly murdered his wife and his wife's lover. Like, I think that's different.
I thought he wasn't her lover.
Or whatever.
Ron Goldman. I'm just being
Ron Goldman. Oh, that's right. I actually
he was gay,
assumed
right?
that
He just came over to get sunglasses. Wrong place, wrong time.
O.J. Simpson.
Number one.
Thought differently, I guess. Yeah, I would say so. Poor Goldmans.
Yep.
So it was that documentary, that 5-part documentary is fucking heartbreaking just from the Goldmans perspective. Anyway, so I feel like you can separate them. The thing that frustrates me, the reason I say this is because I try to keep an open mind about things, about people, and forgiveness is a righteous kind of thing. And we've talked about this, I think, in the past.
Mike Tyson.
With Mike Tyson, like where I'm like, I don't necessarily know if you can forgive someone for something like this, because we're talking about, in O.J. Simpson's case, murder. We're talking about with Tyson, with rape. I'm not saying, actions do speak louder than words.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Mel Gibson didn't mean it. I'm not saying Mel Gibson was right in saying what he said, but he didn't like murder someone. Right. And so there are different degrees of this. I think the reason Mel Gibson found himself in the spotlight was because of bad timing, because Mel Gibson is super fucking religious, that was
Very
happening
religious,
beforehand
yeah.
because the Passion of the Christ was really his last huge film.
That was the big thing of why I think it was such a fall for him.
I think so,
the fact
too.
that he was starting to get on the high horse about Passion of the Christ, and then I forget, for Apocalypto, there was something, right, that it was going to be this huge thing. It was going to be this giant, big deal, right? And then it didn't happen because of this, or did this happen
I
before
don't
it?
remember, but I just remember that.
I remember there
not
being
doing
something
well.
that there was a lot of
Yeah.
hype about that, and then it either fizzled just at the box office in general, or it was that this happened. Everybody's like, not with a 10-foot pole.
To me, it's like, I like to, you can judge people in the moment. You can judge people for what they've done. I think that's totally fine. You can judge me for the things I've done. You can judge anyone for the things that they've done. But it's also, speaking of Christianity, it's like, cast the first stone. At some point, like, we can't walk around having these incredible grudges. And what I really find disturbing, and this is why I try to take the other tact, is that a lot of this kind of shit is put on conservatives specifically. And I'm not saying that in the case of Mel Gibson. I'm just saying the guy who founded Firefox and Mozilla, whatever, was basically thrown out of the company for giving money to a pro-gay or an anti-gay marriage cause, which I think, and I want to be categorical about it, is fucking ridiculous that happened to him. I just want to be like, period, end of story. Because there was no evidence that he treated gay people in any way other than with respect at his company.
Right.
He just has like a religious thing, and I frankly, I know people like that are like, should be left to the states, or like, I don't believe for religious reasons gay marriage, but they treat gay people with all the respect in the world. Otherwise, I'm not saying that's the right stance, but when I see things like that, I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. And I said it at the time, and I think it's wrong. And the same thing's happening with Peter Thiel now, who is supporting Donald Trump, who's the guy who founded PayPal and is a billionaire and doesn't give a flying fuck what anyone thinks, and he's the guy that sunk Gawker and all that kind of stuff. People are aiming at him because he's conservative. I mean, otherwise it would.
Was actually supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
He gave Donald Trump like millions of dollars. And that's his prerogative, and I don't judge him based on that. I'll judge him based on his character, and I don't think his politics necessarily speak to his character. The same thing with the Mozilla guy. I don't think, knowing some people that are against gay marriage, I know that it doesn't speak to their character. So like,
So we're talking about forgiveness right now, but going back to the thing of, can you like someone's art without liking the artist? You said yes right away, but it's not it's a broad brush thing. There's many things, right? Because there's that one band you liked that then the lead singer got child porn stuff.
Sure. Well, that's why I'm saying it's certain degree. So Lost Prophets is the band you're talking about. I haven't listened to Lost Prophets one time, and part of me wants to sometimes because I actually really like some of those records. People that don't know, the singer of Lost Prophets, which was a pretty big alt-rock band, Ian Watkins, I think was the singer's name. He basically was found that he was like doing really fucked up shit, like sexual shit with minors, and I think even with a baby. Now that is beyond the fucking pale to me.
Right.
But that's again an action, not a word. That's the same thing I was saying with O.J. Simpson and Mike Tyson, where I'm like, I understand where you can, like, so that guy is disgusting, and I was really disgusted with him not only by his actions, but how he fucking boldly just destroyed everyone around him. Their music's now worthless. Their catalog's worthless. They can't tour anymore. They can't do anything. Their name's dead. All that kind of stuff. He fucked everyone around him because of his selfish, fucking disgusting. So that is different. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But I think what came to mind for me when you were talking about this, when we were kind of coming up with the topics, and I don't know how people agree with this, is not necessarily about art, but people often look back in American history and are like, well, the founders were slaveholders, and I'm like, yeah, they were, and that's despicable and that's dishonorable. We don't know what's normative at the time. We don't know what was normal at the time. And what was normal at the time was for plantation owners to have slaves. So I'm not saying that that's right, because there were abolitionists that were fighting the cause even then, contemporary to them. But did they not also craft something beautiful that we exist in today? Were they hypocrites? Yeah. All men created equal, all that kind of stuff. They didn't mean it. But we are a product of of what they did. And I actually revere some of those men. So you can remove the bad aspects from the good aspects. But again, I agree with Greg in saying that, and even in my own interpretation, it's very selective. Thomas Jefferson's one of the great thinkers of all time. Thomas Jefferson not only instigated our revolution, but actually instigated the French Revolution as well, directly. a great democratic, classical, liberal thinker who owned hundreds of slaves, and not only that, had sexual relationships with his slaves and never acknowledged the kids. You know, like he did fucked up shit too.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you balance that out, but I do think that it's a level of degrees. We talk about in the election with Trump and Clinton that in my interpretation they both don't reach the threshold of acceptability, right? Like that there's thresholds. Hillary's probably above Trump in terms of that threshold. Well, I think you have to look at it in the same kind of list way. It was like, well, Mel Gibson said things. O.J. Simpson clearly murdered his wife.
Yeah.
They're on different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the way I feel. I think it's complicated though. And I do think it's time to forgive Mel Gibson.
Richard, can you enjoy an artist or art if you don't enjoy the artist?
I think you can. There are, like Colin said, there are certain things that are somewhat unforgivable. So like, it's not so much you can't enjoy the art, but will your art benefit the artist? And if you think that someone's done something that's so unspeakable that they don't deserve to be rewarded for anything that they do, like murder or rape or whatever, in terms of, oh, I don't want to support this because supporting this will give them millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they don't deserve to essentially live in that lifestyle considering the damage that they've caused to society. But the art itself can still be enjoyed from a critical point of view. Like, it's not like, depending on the person, the actual merits of the art get reduced. It doesn't. Like, art is art. And sometimes the person does it, sometimes the artist doing it will add value to that piece of art. But the actual value itself isn't really predicated on anything to do with the actual artist. Like, obviously, in today's society, certain artists have a greater value. But in terms of just appreciating it, I don't think it really matters to that extent. Like,
see, I have a hard time. I'll admit that I have a hard time divorcing myself from that. Right? Like if I know that a celebrity is crazy or does crazy shit, that's always playing around in the back of my mind, and it does make me, on some level, not like the film as much. Right? Like ever since I found out that Will Smith is a crazy Scientologist, it's tarnished his recent work in a little bit in my eyes, because I'm like, I don't understand how someone that's so good, that I've loved so much, can believe in something that I'm so against. Now, granted, I've never done anything to anyone really, except for having a set of beliefs that I just can't fathom people actually holding on to. But then you have people like, you have someone like, take Chris Brown, right? Chris Brown has been in and out of the news all the time for doing horrible shit, right? Like he beat Rihanna, bit her, did all that crazy shit, did it again. Still popular, still going on the VMAs and the music awards and things like that. Like, I just don't understand how people can then look at that and be like, I'm gonna support that guy, or I don't give a fuck. Like, how can you not give a fuck that dude is making millions of dollars because of your failure to do nothing about it? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it comes down to answer the original question. I think that yes, you can separate it, but also I don't think that I don't think any art is owed that separation. I think that it is a case-by-case type of situation. And when it comes down to it, like, two people that I think are in a similar field are Kanye and Chris Brown when you're talking about this type of stuff. You can be critical of Kanye West's decisions or whatever, but he didn't beat someone. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you're looking at it from that perspective. Now, for me, it's a little more difficult because I'm not necessarily a fan of Chris Brown. I am a fan of Kanye. I can kind of separate and divorce those things with Kanye to an extent. But I think that even then, no matter what, I can never listen to his work, which admittedly I think has gotten worse over time. I can't separate it completely because I know the story. And I think that's kind of where it's at with a lot of contemporary artists is their influencer aspect is part of the whole story. So it's like you can't separate it at all, whether it's a band or a movie or this or that. Reading about it, watching trailers, being on Twitter, knowing their presence is kind of part.
So what is it about Kanye that rubs you the wrong way, or rubs people the wrong way? Just
his brashness and his ego, and it's just his views of life are so different than everyone else's. Right. But like he just doubles down and commits to that to the point that like he sees himself as a god, literally, says he's a god, literally. Like he's at the point where it's not even figurative to him. Like he's like, no.
So he's crossed the threshold of buying into his own bullshit.
Exactly.
Just sold it too well.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that's what it is. But it's like, all right, cool. If you're not down with that, that's fine. But clearly think that that's forgivable, and I think that that's kind of
but that's different.
lens
That,
to look
that
at the
builds
art
into
through.
the art.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
That has to do with that actually amplifies the experience, whether it's going to be positive or negative.
Yeah.
Every time Kanye says something absurd like that, and then then he comes out with a video where he is in a godlike robe, and the camera's just slowly zooming on him as all these fucking like demigod figures are around him. It kind of backs up that power of whatever he's saying.
Yeah.
So I get that, and in that regard, I think he deserves to sort of be where he's at, because he is polarizing, but he's doing what I think all art, whether it's good or bad, should do, which is it evokes some sort of emotion, whether it's pure hatred or love or some mixture of the both. You do explore those in yourself as you're listening to or like perceiving his work.
Yeah.
Whereas Chris Brown's just a dick.
Well, so that's my thing. It's like, but like with Kanye has done and especially said many things that I disagree with, to the point of it makes me like the music less, and I am not super into it. Having said that, though, I think that the quality does speak for itself in many ways. So I'm like, all right, cool, I can separate it, and I think that this art does deserve to be at least attempted to be viewed without all that stuff needing to taint it as much as Chris Brown, for example, who is very talented. Very talented. There's no denying that, but it's like, I think that his talent is completely like inescapable from the acts that he's done, and I feel like that is the type of situation where people should act on that. However, there's a lot of people that disagree, and like that's their prerogative entirely, and they can totally, do that. What gets harder for me is looking at people that I look up to, like personally, like thinking of people that make internet videos or music alike or this or that or whatever.
Hulk Hogan.
But who?
Hulk Hogan. You might have heard him. You look up to him too. He made some mistakes.
But people that I personally really look up to and respect, and when I find out that they make bad decisions or they do like cheating on girlfriends or stuff like that, and I think that is something that I've had a really hard time to deal with, because it changes the way I see them as people. And I know it's kind of getting a little bit out of art, but I mean, some of them do make art, and it makes me look at their work differently. It makes me respect their work differently. And I think that, going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier with the hustle, I think that a lot of the artists I like are independent, whether it's YouTube videos, music, this or whatever it is. And I think that there is a lot that goes into that when it comes to you're hustling, like that is your life if you're choosing this lifestyle, and that affects a lot of your personal relationships. That affects like me and Gia. There's a balance issue when it comes to work and personal time and all this stuff, and it's like, for these people to be doing that, I think there's a level of trust that their significant others are giving them, and for them to then cheat on them, it's insulting to the art.
Yeah.
It's insulting to the hustle, to the point that I think it takes away in a way that I very much struggle trying to divorce those things. But I do think you can. But I think that in a perfect world, people don't do bad things and say stupid shit, and the artists have art that you can judge for its art, but I don't think anyone in the history of ever is that way.
Well, yeah, especially when you're talking about artists, right? And that's why it's complex, right? Where they're not devoid of humanity, right? You can't separate an artist from being a human being as well. And human beings are flawed. We make mistakes, and we do crazy shit every once in a while. Compound that to the fact that, compound on top of that, the fact that you're an artist and probably doing crazy shit on the side, like substance abuse. Like Mel Gibson was loaded. He admitted that he had 8 double tequila shots before he decided to drive, which is a stupid idea, but that obviously is fueling some sort of inner rage that he needed to deal with. But I think we've talked about this before. It's just same with our political candidates. It's like we're expecting these people to be gods, like human, like perfect beings, and they're just not gonna be. And so that's why it's almost a little disappointing with myself that I can't divorce those feelings.
But I mean, like, I don't know.
Like Hulk Hogan,
sure.
he's supposed to be an icon. He's supposed to be like,
yeah, but I mean, like, I'm with you on some of this, what you're saying but it's not that. I mean, Mel Gibson didn't just slip up, you know what I mean, and do something stupid. Chris Brown didn't just accidentally punch Rihanna in the face, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're asking them to be gods in that. Or just, can you not fucking punch people and scream hate and bigot speech all the time like that? That's the thing. And I think it goes the opposite way, where it's like, oh, Rock and Kevin Hart have a film coming out. Sure, it's not going to be Oscar worthy, but yeah, I'll go see Central Intelligence in the theater, which I don't do for any other movies, but I like those guys, and I see them on Instagram having fun and doing whatever and being fun dudes. I'm like, sure, I'll support you, and like the way people support us, and go out and do this dumb thing.
So then what happens if The Rock has some sort of controversy that happens?
I go back in time and I don't see Central Intelligence.
Yeah, you just take your money right the fuck back.
No, I mean, that is the risk you run for sure. That what is it? And then it's like going forward, how does that change their perspective? And going backward, that's always the thing too. We're talking about like, major players, right? The lead singer of this band, Kanye West, Mel Gibson, who's fronting a project or being the director. But like when we talked about this, right? And the first thing that keyed in my mind was Mr. Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right?
Yeah.
Jeffrey Jones, right? I looked it up before. Who turns out to be into child porn? Yeah, Jeffrey Jones, right? And it's like
I think he died, didn't he?
I don't. Well,
He's dead now.
I'm looking at that right now. But I mean, the point. I just watched Ferris Bueller's Day recently, right? No, he's still alive.
Still alive.
Yeah. And it was one of those things of like, oh yeah, I forgot how good this movie's. Oh, there's Mr. Root. Oh fuck, right.
Yeah.
Fucking, he's really good in this movie, but yeah, he's a fucking diddler of kids. He's looking at kiddie porn all the time, soliciting fucking naked photos of kids.
That sucks too, because that's probably one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And so you do. Get
and then I think of him and Howard the Duck and all this other stuff. And you're like, fuck, man.
You're like, it's tough.
I think that we have to just look at it like the way I kind of reflect on this is that I first of all, I think that like forgiveness is a really noble and like righteous thing, right? But I do think that you have to. Again, it's a level of degrees. There's no right or wrong answer to it. And maybe the easiest way to kind of come to an answer and a conclusion is to kind of reflect those things on yourself. Like if you got drunk one night and said something really terrible and someone got it on camera, would you want to be forgiven? But could you imagine, and the other perspective is like, could you imagine forgiving someone for that? And could you imagine someone forgiving you? And could you imagine this being in that situation? And the answer to all that is probably yes. But if you were Chris Brown and you beat a woman, well, you're a piece of shit. That's different, right? That's different. And then you do it again and you don't show any remorse. And because I think that people can rehabilitate when they do terrible things. I really believe some people are prone to mistakes like that. That's the way it is. And I just am not comfortable going through my life if we'd reach that threshold of acceptability, like I was saying before, where it's like, well, it's a word or it's a minor action or it's something that can be corrected and you have a great life otherwise, or you've shown propensity to be good and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's probably worth it to try to like give that person the benefit of the doubt. And like, maybe you'll see the way I look at it is like, it's better to give the person the benefit of the doubt in these more minor, and I use that in quote situations, and then end up being wrong than never giving them a chance. And then they really were different, but like you never knew any better. And so like Mel Gibson's a good example where Mel Gibson did some fucked up shit and said some fucked up things. And it wasn't isolated to one incident. But Mel Gibson didn't murder someone. Mel Gibson didn't rape someone. Mel Gibson didn't, fight someone. Mel Gibson didn't and it was 10 years ago. I think time does matter. I think that like, has he reflected on it? Has he showed sorrow? I don't know. I don't know all the answers. I haven't thought about this in a while. I mean, Mel Gibson's like fucking persona non grata in Hollywood. And so like, he just kind of disappears from your purview after a while. I just try to look at, here's the bottom line with a lot of this stuff is if someone put a tape recorder in your house for a year, right? And listen to everything you said, you'd be fucking finished.
I'd be done.
You know what I mean?
I would be so done.
And so I just try to, and that goes for everybody.
Yeah.
Whether it's an inappropriate joke, whether it's the heat of the moment argument you got in where you said some things you didn't mean, whether it's, et cetera and so on. I'm like, everyone's been there. I'm sorry. And like, I just feel like it doesn't necessarily, and I'm not saying necessarily you've said racist things or anything like that, but you said like, maybe you have, I don't know, but like, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like you've said things you've regretted, you've done things you've regretted, you've done things that will make you look bad, and everyone has those things, especially in this more technological age. When he got caught in 2006, it wasn't even. We're not even where we are now, where everything is basically recorded. Everything can be recorded. Everyone's phone is a fucking camera and a voice recorder. So I implore people out there to just like kind of just take a step back and just be like, you know what, like, how would you feel if you had one bad night and it ruined you, and all you wanted was someone to know what was really deep inside of you? Well, I'd rather give someone the benefit of the doubt and be totally wildly wrong than the other way around. But I also want to reiterate that idea that there are certain things that are not forgivable. Like Lost Prophet singer can, like, I hope someone fucking shanks that motherfucker in prison. Like and O.J. Simpson's a piece of shit. Mike Tyson's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
The problem, but fucking, not to interrupt, but like we're talking about politics, Bill Clinton's a fucking piece of shit for the things he did and got away with, and everyone forgives him for those things.
Right.
He lied about so much shit. Jennifer Flowers, Paula Jones, Monica Lewinsky, all these fucking people. He trotted his wife on fucking TV in 1992 talking about how Jennifer Flowers was a liar, and when he was deposed in 1998, admitted that she wasn't lying. And no, everyone forgives all aspects of that because he's Bill Clinton. So like, why do we pray? And he did fucking messed up. He preyed on women, so what I'm saying is like, we have to just like be consistent in this.
Right.
I mean, the button to what you're saying is the quote as old as I can remember, right? Of to err is human, to forgive divine. Like, it's what you're talking about, right? Like, it is that put yourself in somebody else's shoes and try to figure it out. And what was it in the heat of the moment? Is it a true thing? What have they done since then? There's a lot to balance.
There's no doubt that what Mel Gibson said was deep inside him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That,
You know?
that was definitely years and years and years of being in the industry, and seeing it from a certain perspective, and then having a bias. Like that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and
whether or not he's come to terms with that, I don't know, because I've never actually heard him really apologize for it or say that he's really sorry that it happened. And I think oftentimes with these guys that we're on top of the world once, it's so hard for them to like swallow their pride and realize that they've erred. That like you get those half-ass responses about shit. And you're like, dude, you're not admitting that you did something that we all as a collective group of humans on this planet think is wrong. You're just pissed off because it's a bad situation that you're in and you want it to go away. And I think, and that's the thing, Nate Parker, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this person I'm talking about, the guy who did Birth of a Nation. He's dealt with it poorly too. He was accused of rape, acquitted in 1999, I believe, in college, and then the girl went on to commit suicide in 2012, which is then kind of re-brought up these allegations. So he was acquitted, and now it's still following him, and people are still doubting as to whether or not he's actually committed that horrible crime, but it's still casting a shadow on his work. So like that's I think the worst possible situation, because you don't really know if this person did this thing, if he's a bad thing. If he raped a girl in 1999, I don't like him. I'm not going to watch any of his movies. I'm not going to support his work. Plain and simple. That's just the way it goes. But I don't know. And so it sucks for him in a way, because even if he is guilty or he's not guilty, he's guilty. That's just the way it goes.
Right, and it shows the contradiction in my own line of thought, and I think a lot of people's line of thought too, in that like O.J. Simpson too was acquitted. Now we know that was all bullshit, but again, we know. God, you got to watch that documentary, like with the fucking jurors and everything. These people are fucking full of shit. We know O.J. Simpson did it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but not sorry.
He got convicted in a civil case, though.
Yeah. But it is the same thing where he was in terms of criminal charges, similar to this actor. He was acquitted. Yet we may be given the benefit of the doubt to this guy. Maybe he didn't do it. Maybe he did. I don't know. But the court of law and his jury of his peers says he didn't.
And there hasn't been, a 5-part documentary, right, on this allegation on what that means. It's just this.
I think it just goes to show that it's a very complicated sort of
100.
It's just very complicated. It's just very complicated, case by case basis. But I think that overall, yes, you can, because I think if you dig deep enough into some of the books you read, with Orson Scott Card, it's a fucking great example. Orson Scott Card is one of the great sci-fi writers in America. Super fucking against gay marriage. This ruined a lot of shit for a lot of people. Like he wrote a Shadow Complex book. He wrote so he's got a connection to games. He obviously wrote Ender's Game, which is like one of the most critically acclaimed sci-fi books of the last 50 years. People hate that motherfucker because of his stance on gay marriage. To me, I'm like, I don't know. I don't.
You don't agree with him, but wait, what do you
I don't agree with him at all. But
you can still sit there and say his books are good.
Because here's the thing about it, and I think this is the important thing, is that like if we project this kind of holier than thou shit on everyone, you're not gonna like anybody. And that's the kind of thing that like I there's something about everyone at this table's belief structure that another person at this table doesn't like. Right? If you held everyone to those particular standards and those accounts, then what's the point of even having personal relationships with anyone? It really gets down into the nitty gritty, where it's like, what's the point of speaking to anyone, having friends, if you want to just have a groupthink kind of fucking goose stepping mentality where everyone has to agree and feel the same exact way? And to me, I'm like, you don't want to go down that road. You just don't want to go down that road with your hero. And they say don't meet your heroes and stuff, and maybe that's the case, but I don't want to be held to that standard, and so I'm not necessarily going to hold other people to that standard as well, because certainly my politics have turned people off, but I try not to be turned off by other people's politics because it's not fair, You
want a different opinion sometimes.
And I also want to be challenged. I think it's fun. I think a lot of people think like, well, Colin's a great debater and he's good at all these things. Well, I have a lot of practice because I put myself in situations where I know I'm going to have to defend myself, and I think a lot of people don't want to do that or don't like to do that, which is why they're so fucking easy to dismantle. If you challenge yourself and put yourself in a situation where, everyone has a different kind of point of view and no one's right or wrong, then I think it strengthens you as a person. And that does go back to the forgiveness topic.
For the record, Colin, I think you're a master debater.
Thank you.
Damn it. I had that joke in my brain.
Thank you.
And I was going to say it and you beat me to it.